Got a little bit of work to do on the BMW, so I figure I might as well get started. I just rode the bike last weekend up in the mountains, so got to go unload it from the van. So the entire time I've had this bike, it's been on these Rosso 3 tires, and I gotta say I have never felt confident on them, both on hard braking, trail braking in the front. I would feel the front push, and obviously on corner exit drive I would feel this tire squirm under me. I just don't like these tires, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and put Q5s on it, just like that's on the TD tire that's on my FC09, and we'll see how that feels. But regardless, this bike needs a needs a new chain, needs sprockets, and yeah, a good suspension setup. I have never even done a proper setup on this bike. I just hardly ride it, so it's time. I'm gonna do that. So this chain has about 13,000 miles on it, and it is just, I'm at the end of the adjustment for chain adjustment, and you can see several links are kinking, and it's just plain worn out. But yeah, you see how the links are wavy. That's because they're all bound up, and chains they turn into that after a while. We'll use our nice new Motion Pro chain breaker and riveting tool to drive it out. But before we do all that, I'm going to use this chain and existing sprockets to go ahead and remove the counter sprocket. And that sounds like a good idea to me, because what I can do is apply the rear brake, hold the chain in place, and then remove the counter sprocket bolt. And also I can apply torque to the new counter sprocket on the old chain, so that the chain is getting the brunt of all that torque when reinstalling, and not the new chain, which is, it sounds like a good idea, so you're not putting any undue stress on the brand new chain that you don't have to do. So we'll do that. So first thing I'm going to do here is remove the T25 button head bolt for the quick shifter, get that out of the way. Then there are 3 other fasteners that hold that cover on, and then we'll have access to the counter sprocket. Yeah, and like I suspected, it's got to be all the original stuff. These are actually T30 head Torx fasteners, not T25 like what you find here, and looks like somebody stripped that one at 1.2. But yeah, here's the counter sprocket and a safety washer, and of course it's full of grime and dirt and all sorts of stuff. The sprocket condition, from what I can see so far, doesn't look terrible. The back though was showing a little bit of they're a bit pointy, so yeah, it's about time anyway. And we're gonna go ahead and clean all that up, and it's really important not to break loose these counter drive sprockets or the counter sprocket nuts while the transmission is engaged. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be putting impact or high torques through that way. So what you do is you go ahead and you put it in neutral, which this one is. Apply the rear brake, fold down the ears of your safety washer here, or the locking washer. It's just an anti-rotation feature. And then I think it's a 34 millimeter. I have a socket for that. apply the rear brake, and then go ahead and break that loose. It's a regular old, left counterclockwise to loosen nut. Alright, got that part reasonably cleaned up. All that bulk of grease and old chain wax and lubes out of there, so close enough for government work. Alright, cleaned up the bottom end here a little bit. I like working in a clean environment, so also got that reasonably clean, and we're at the stage now we're ready to pop off that output shaft nut for the counter sprocket. Alright, what you want to do is just work around it little by little taps until you get that washer to get nice and flat. You got to do that on both sides. Alright, here's a handy trick if you're doing this by yourself and you don't have a helper to hold the rear brake. Just put a little ratchet strap around it. I put it on the loop end here so it doesn't have a better chance of flying off, but not much tension, just enough to hold the rear brake. And if that's not enough, we'll give it a couple more clicks, but just enough to hold that rear wheel. So we're going to take a 34 millimeter. Just like that. This is your safety washer. And the number 17 facing out, so the boss of that sprocket will be on the back side. Alright, just remove the rear axle nut, loosen that up. And on the BMWs, it is a 13 and a 10. Tell me why you gotta make it two different sizes for the tensioner. You can see it's all the way out. It's out there pretty far, so this chain was cooked. So let's go ahead and crack those loose. Drive in the tension bolt, and then move the whole rear wheel forward and get that rear sprocket off, and put the new one in, tension everything back up, and then we'll remove the chain. Might as well remove the rear wheel too so we can take off the sprocket. A little fiddly because it's not really the way you want to fish it out, but there you go. Yeah, and you see the boss faces the rear. And the rear seal looks good. I don't see any oil, no cracks. Yeah, it looks good. And again, here's the kit I got from Drive Systems USA. Again, it's just going to be a pretty much stock replacement, same gearing, and a nice DID chain. I run this on the Yamaha and it looks brand new after several thousand miles, so I'm going to stick with that for now. So let's get it open and we'll put on that counter sprocket. Alright, here's the replacement sprocket, brand new. And like I said, I'm going to put it on with the old chain first, just so that I can torque it and put all the tension in this throwaway chain and rear sprocket. That way the brand new chain can go right on, having never been stretched by this process. Alright, it took a little bit of fiddling, but it's in there. That is the new sprocket with the old chain. And let's go ahead and torque that down. Alright, that's the new sprocket with the old chain torqued and the safety washer recrimped. We're ready to go ahead and break this chain and slide on the new one. I think what I'm going to do is grind down the heads a little bit to give the chain breaker a little less stress for use. They can and do push these pins out no problem, but if you don't have to, just go ahead and remove the top of those heads and give your tool a little bit less work to do. Alright, put on your safety squints and get the grinding. See, just like that. And all you're doing is removing the head there, so the chain breaker doesn't really have to work that hard. You can almost knock those out yourself with a drift or something, but we'll use our nice brand new tool. Motion Pro. So you guys let me know if you want to see more about how to use this tool, but it's pretty simple. I've had really cheap ones in the past that just bent the first time you used them, so this one already out of the box feels really robust. So I'm going to go ahead and drive the first pin through, and I'll check back with you in a minute. Rivet is pushed all the way through. Go ahead and remove the tool. And that is the rivet from the factory chain. Pops right out. Alright, so here's a little trick that you can use to get the new chain on. You can do it on the bottom, or you could do it at the top. This is kind of why I ground down both sides, because I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use. But you're going to use the master link of your new chain to go to the tail end of your old chain, and then you can pull it around to thread in your new chain without having to, you know, finagle with all this up here. It's a real quick and easy way to get a new chain on. So here, I'll show you how to do that. Here's the new chain, and a pro tip: before you put this chain on, it comes from the factory with a lot of grease on it, and it's better now just to go ahead and clean that off as best you can, or else you'll be getting it off your rear wheel and swing arm and everywhere else for a long time. So while you got it off now, go ahead and hit this with some you know, some chain cleaner and get the wax or this grease off of it, and you'll be happier. And but don't worry, because once we get this on the bike, it will be cleaned again. And then I like to use a wax spray. I've been doing that for a long time and got no trouble with my chains, so that's what I'm going to continue to do. So always use a chain specific cleaner for your chains. Don't use things like brake clean or any other harsh solvents that will destroy the O-rings on your chain. So kerosene, I just use a regular old chain clean. The Maxima products are also really good. I use them. I'll use that for the wax later, but I'm just going to go ahead and spray this down and just get all that excess grease out of it. Alright, so yeah, this is the trick. You're going to take your new chain, tail end, you're going to link it up with your master link to the old chain, and then we're going to pull it through. And when it comes back around, we'll remove this, put our O-rings on, and then rivet this guy up, and that'll be the end of that. We're going to finish the riveting job here for the DID chain. This is a 525 VX3, so the range of flare should be between 224 to 236 thousandths. To properly measure your rivets, you want to use a set of calipers like this. So measuring our left, again, just make light contact with the flare. So we're measuring 236 thousandths, which is right at the limit. We don't want to go any larger than that. The right rivet could use a little bit more. It's currently measuring 213 thou. We will continue flaring that to get between the ranges of 224 and 236. And to rivet the link, you need to set up your tool like this, where we have the die and anvil set to the riveting setting, which is by aligning the little R next to the rivet. So when the anvil, this is the back side of the link, that's what you're going to be pressing up against. And then the die portion here is what's going to be doing the flaring. Okay, using a 17mm wrench, we will torque this down, which will flare the rivet. The pitch of this thread that does the clamping force is about 30 thousandths, so that means every rotation will move the die 30 thousandths. So we only have a little bit to go. So take your time, do small increments, and check your work. You don't want to over flare the rivet. As you're applying torque here, it's a good idea to also shift the tool around like this ensuring that it's not kinking on the back side, or that you know, there's anything wrong here. You should be able to see the link move freely. If it does bind up on you, you're in bad luck, because you've overdone it, and you'll have to buy a new master link and start all over. So always give it some motion, making sure that it's not bound up. Alright, well, that'll do it. 230 thou, which means we are just 6 thou under the maximum. So I'll call that job done.